Child Care Aware of Missouri, next on City Corner. Hi, I'm Sarah Thompson, and welcome to City Corner. The first 2,000 days of a child's life are considered to be the most important when it comes to critical brain development and learning. Child Care Aware of Missouri is a statewide nonprofit that focuses on those first 2,000 days, and they do this through a variety of programs and services and partnerships that help those who are serving children. So today we're going to learn all about the work that they do across the state, and then we're also going to get into some discussions, some topical discussions that you probably hear about on the news about childcare and its effects on all of us. So it's my pleasure to be joined by Robin Phillips. She is the CEO of Child Care Aware of Missouri. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And I know you're traveling around the state. You are so busy. You have a lot to do. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. I enjoy talking about this and helping other people learn something maybe they didn't know about.
There's a lot to, here we are coming out of an election cycle. Childcare is always on people's minds when it comes to for families. And I know you said to me off camera, it affects everyone, even if you have children or not. So we are going to get into that. I wanted to start off with these bigger topics that people are talking about, which is, what do you see as sort of the most pressing right now childcare concern?
You know, it's the struggle of finding childcare. It's the struggle of young working families being able to afford childcare. You have more options here in a larger city than you do in a rural part of our state. I think it's, families are trying to get back to work or get into apprenticeships, working families, right? And their options are slim. And they don't realize that so many of the choices they have are on waiting lists for a year or two. And it's even harder to find if you have an infant or a toddler. And so I think, that's the biggest stressor I hear from working families. I hear from employers regularly and those in economic development positions too, that their communities are struggling to recruit and retain a workforce. They're trying to address workforce migration. They are thinking about quality of life features in their community, and childcare is one of those things. It's one of those barriers to workforce participation.
Is there anything that is unique to in your work that's different in Missouri or unique to Missouri, or is it pretty on par with what's happening in the rest of the country?
We're pretty well connected to lots of entities like us in other states. And then we are a member of a national organization called Child Care Aware of America that keeps us informed of federal policy. They have boots on the ground on the Hill. And, I think Missouri oftentimes is behind a lot of other states. That's not to say we haven't made progress here in Missouri, because we have. So I don't want to discount that. The conversations are very different today than they were pre-COVID. And there's a lot more innovative, entrepreneurial, and blended funding to address the gaps in the system. I was actually at the White House a few months ago, talking about this and learning from other states, and just hearing of the successes from different investments and diversified funding, and not an entity or a community being dependent upon one source of funding. So more specifically, we can't sit around and wait for the state to fix this. We can't sit around and wait for federal government to fix this. It has to be a combined effort, and it has to be a blend of private and public money.
It's really interesting. And that's amazing too that you just came back. Oh, I just came back from the White House. That's fantastic. I want to, and congratulations on that for being able to represent Child Care Aware of Missouri there. I want to pull up this, talk about Child Care Deserts. So I'm going to pull up, we've got a map, and I know that Child Care Aware of Missouri contributed to this. This was something that I pulled from a story in the Missouri Independent ran a story about child care deserts. And they say almost half, and this is from 2023, almost half of all children in Missouri ages 5 and under now live in child care deserts. And so they found, as this is part of an investigation and a story they did where they were pulling from public records and data. And then I also want to pull up another graphic, and this is some of the statistics that I know that you have as well. And so child care desert, we look at that and say that means that the definition, 3 times more children than than a licensed childcare slots are available, and that this just goes into some of the stats that you have. And I know some of these you were telling me it's no longer 72 counties; it's now 75.
Yes, it's 75. We track the supply of licensed and licensed exempt community-based childcare. I want to make that clear, not public pre-K, community-based childcare.
Okay.
We track that supply every single month. It's
Okay.
public information. We just happen to have a database that houses lots of data pieces in one place. So it does teeter between like 72 and 78. So last month it was 78, it's 75.
I see.
Well, what makes those numbers fluctuate? Well, somebody may have been able to add on some slots, expand their space, or maybe a few new places opened and created more slots. What we say, and that's from 2023, we've actually modified our methodology a little bit when we look at number of slots compared to census data of children 0 to 6 with parents in the workforce. So it's not much different, but it's a little bit different. And so that's what's informing our numbers. And so yes, today that sits at 75. And we even have some counties in our state that has 0 childcare.
That's when you look at the map. I mean, of course, you see in, like you had mentioned, in metropolitan areas, St. Louis, Kansas City, Columbia. It seems like it's covered, but once you get into some of the rural counties, it's
And what the data don't tell us is that there may be a number of slots there. However, that child care center may have fewer slots than what they can really serve because they themselves struggle with the workforce because of the low wages, the unappreciation of the hard work that, and it's mostly women, but men and women do in these programs. And so they struggle themselves to recruit and retain a workforce there.
I want to pull up this is going to great segue into employment and childcare issues. And we've got another graphic to look at for that. And so there's two things, childcare benefits and employment. So as you were saying, 80% of working parents say childcare benefits impact their decision to stay at a company. 69% of women with young children state that they'd be more likely to choose an employer that assisted with childcare access.
Yes.
And then we have another one to further that, where employment and childcare, and this gets into the economy, and I would love for you to expand on this, but just basically what's lost essentially due to childcare issues, whether that's parents voluntarily stepping aside and not working, which is decreasing the workforce, or those who have to leave or take part-time work instead of full-time work. I mean, it's really complicated when you're looking at all these stats. One, I love data and I appreciate the data. I think on a deeper, even this like sort of moral and ethical issue, we sit around as a society and, we are brought up to say, encourage people to have families. And then as soon as you have children and have families, you're sort of left to really struggle with how to raise them. Right. And then the expense of that. And it's not easy, and you mentioned that not only wait lists, but then the cost of that.
The cost.
And for those who are the providers and working in that field, there's a lot there as well. And so, I mean, if you could just talk about, because you're doing this day in, day out, I know, sorry, but to talk about these kind of correlations on the employment side as well.
Yeah, those data points you just referenced came from a U.S. Chamber Foundation report, specifically on it's a report called Untapped Potential in Missouri. Okay. And it demonstrates that our economy, and those are 2021 numbers at that time, that our economy at that point in time was losing $1.35 billion in revenue, sales tax revenue, from lost wages of people not being able to go to work because of childcare specifically. We know transportation and housing and other things are barriers to the workforce, but childcare is a huge one. And so I think when you think about, and I'm not an economist at all, but I try to understand and learn and do a lot of reading and researching to try and understand the language and what that means. And I think, when we think about people who aren't able to go back to work and it's going back into lost wages, if the median income is, make it simple, $50,000, maybe it's 53, maybe it's 55, but that's $50,000 that someone isn't earning to invest into the economy. That report also, and that return ROI on caregiving report's a great one too that you referenced earlier. It's oftentimes in a two-parent family, it's oftentimes the primary caregiver is the mom, the primary mom, right, who's the caregiver of the children. She's missing opportunities for work. She's missing opportunities to build into a 401k. That family may be missing opportunities on benefits, depending on which employer that parent had for benefits. But you're right, it boils down to some families make that choice of, I'm only working to pay for childcare, because it's equivalent oftentimes to in-state college tuition or a mortgage payment or a rent payment. And our young families don't have the like cash liquidity to keep paying out those kinds of prices. And high quality childcare and early childhood education is expensive because it takes a lot to make a quality environment. And so sometimes families are left to choose with just simply what they can afford, which may not be necessarily the robust environment they would like to have, but simply a safe environment where they know their child's going to be okay. You know, and it's good that families can have options, right? But when we talk about that brain development in that first 2,000 days, I mean, these children deserve to be in places, and no matter where those children come from, they deserve to be in places where they have equitable access to all the things to get those neurons going, because they're our future workforce, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it's about stepping back and looking like, if we aren't as a society coming to an understanding that we need to invest early to show the ROI, there's research and data out there to show the ROI on that, we're missing the boat. And there's a lot of remediation things that may happen once that child gets to school, or you know, take it into graduation or military enlistment. There's so much data out there. And so, yeah, it's a tough decision for many families.
That was, you know, what you've mentioned and alluded to. I mean, that's it right there. It's so important because we know those critical first 5 years, 6 years, and with brain development. I mean, the data's out there. We know how important it is. I want to get into, we've talked a lot about the conditions and the context, but also the solutions which come into the work that you do. Before we go, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to put up on the screen information for you so you can learn more about Child Care Aware of Missouri. You can head to their website. It's incredibly comprehensive, actually, for the services and the programming and the partnerships that you have. A lot to learn there. A lot you can follow on social media as well. So the website's there, and then here are all the social media handles, which I was checking on all of them. You do a great job staying up to date on them with a lot of data and articles and things that are very topical. But we're going to have more with Child Care Aware of Missouri after this quick break, so please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Did you know that you can watch STL TV on your smartphone or tablet? That's right. STL TV is available on your Android or iOS mobile devices. And that includes our live broadcast channels as well as video on demand content. It is really easy to get started. Just find the App Store on your device, then search for Cablecast. Select it and click to install. Launch the app, and if you're in the St. Louis area, STL TV should be the first channel to show up. If you're not in the area, you may have to scroll down to find it. So just click on the STL TV logo, and in just a few seconds, you're enjoying STL TV's great programming such as City Corner, Inside Sports, City Government, What's the 314, or my personal favorite, In the Kitchen.
Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted.
My name's Stacy, I'm 57, and I was adopted in 2020. One teen can come in and make you look at life in a whole different way.
You know, he's my father, so I look up to him a lot. If I can be 10% of the man he is, I'll be a happy person for sure.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
When you graduate, they graduate.
Hi, I'm Sarah Thompson, and welcome back to City Corner. Today, we're speaking with Child Care Aware of Missouri with the CEO, Robin Phillips, who a wealth of knowledge. You've been doing this for how long? This has been
25 years.
25 years.
I didn't know I'd have to admit that on camera.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
It makes it all the more, because I
Yeah.
know you speak with such passion,
Thank
clearly insight, clearly the knowledge. And so I know this is near and dear to you on a personal level as well as a professional one. So I appreciate you being here. We've covered a lot of ground, in the context of things, some of those topical discussions going on in childcare, but I want to get into the work that Child Care Aware of Missouri does. So, the organization is how many years old? When was it started? And
It was
why?
incorporated in 1999. Why would be there was a need for like kind of a statewide entity to be formed to help coordinate and be a liaison between lots of regions around the state to push forward the topics of, child development, child care experiences, early childhood education, and building into the child care workforce. We've got to put more tools in people's toolboxes because they're the ones interacting with our youngest children and prepping them for school. So
When you go, I have this graphic. So when you go, I was on your website, and the reason I pulled this visual, it's like these 3 boxes, but I think it helps give a visual too, because you do a lot of work. You have a lot of programs, a lot of initiatives. So I want to pull that up. So you basically, breaking this down in category, you service, you help people who provide support and services to, you do the family box category, families can reach out and contact you,
Right.
childcare and early education providers,
Yes.
and then as well, you work with businesses
Yes.
as well. So
Yes.
from there, those kind of 3 areas, maybe let's then dive into, and we've got a graphic. Maybe do you want to kind of break that down or kind of add more to those 3 boxes?
so I think so. When it comes to families, we're talking about families in need of childcare who are working, going back to school, getting an apprenticeship. And the way we do our services are very different than how we did them for like 23 years.
Okay.
We actually, every state has to provide a free child care referral service. That's a federal law, okay? It's in a federal block grant. What that service doesn't typically provide and doesn't in Missouri, that free service, is actually navigating people through the system on how to make a choice, what information to look for, what questions to ask. First-time parents, this is very overwhelming. I utilize childcare, and I have a degree in child and family development, and I still was overwhelmed and went in and read, the manuals and everything. And so it's providing this concierge referral service that families can utilize or employers can provide as a benefit for their employees.
Okay.
And it's a time saver, and it helps them, we're making all the phone calls for them to see if there's even openings to
great.
leverage their time that they have, which may be limited if they have to, make phone calls on their lunch hour or don't have the flexibility to come in late or leave early to do their research.
No, that's a lot. And then when you get into for the and then the one box that we had to
The child care professional.
child care providers.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
That's a huge one because I know we've got a few more graphics and we can get into that later because I wanted to be sure to bring in on the business side too, this Child Care Keeps Missouri Working.
Yes.
And we've got a graphic for this. And I think this is a new campaign that you
It is.
Launched. So tell us about this.
Yes. So this launched about a year ago,
Okay.
in last October, and then we worked on some branding and kind of formalized it a bit. This came about because of the conversations I'd been having around the state over the last 2.5 years of childcare is hard to find. I don't have the time to make the phone calls. I don't even know what to look for. Employers are like, I don't want to do on-site childcare. What else can I do to support my employees? And so from that referral side, we created under the Child Care Keeps Missouri Working, this concierge service,
Okay.
and then a market expansion service where we actually provide consultations and do small contract work with employers or other entities who are looking to build childcare capacity in their community.
Okay, so that's great. And then I have one more graphic that I want to pull up because then you have, and this is where I know time, we probably don't have enough time to get into it. There's a picture
yeah.
of your staff,
Yeah.
But it goes into Show Me Childcare Resources, Teach Early Childhood Missouri, and then a CDA scholarship project. I know
Right.
this is a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot that your team is doing, but of those, how did you want to share with the public?
So
about
I
that
think
work?
what's important to know, and we have provided we've stewarded state funding for 24 years to provide scholarships to those working in childcare full-time who desire to get a credential or a degree.
Okay.
And so they can get that CDA degree, not a degree, it's a Child Development Associate credential.
Okay.
They can also have a scholarship for a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, or a master's level certificate in early childhood business and leadership, which is really amazing. And it's an evidence-based model that we're the only ones allowed to issue, to administer this. It's we're the license holder for it. And it has proven retention rate. It has proven increased compensation rates. And we know that retention means consistency for children because those educators are staying there because they're earning their degree while they go. And I think that's a big piece because we can only give what we have. And if I'm interacting with children every single day and I only know this, and I only know how to respond to this or like this, then I'm cheating those opportunities for growing and learning. So it's really expanding their knowledge and expertise to be the best version of themselves. The Show Me Childcare resource is actually what I want to touch on. And you mentioned it earlier, I think off camera, we were talking about just kind of the mental health of everybody in these days. And just, it's kind of hard to describe anymore. But we know for a fact that the frontline worker, the childcare educator, is experiencing a lot of stress themselves. They barely make a livable wage, and they're serving and educating and loving on children who are coming from stressful households. And so one of the coolest things is we've been able to find small grants to provide access to telemed and telemental health services for these childcare educators because the majority of them do not have any kind of benefit. And so we're subsidizing that benefit through grant funding, and that's really amazing.
And so for anyone who might hear this who works in that, is that something that they can, again, just reach out to you directly, like through the website to apply
Yeah,
for?
I mean, it's for people who work in childcare, but here's the cool thing. Like if you're the childcare educator and you have access to that, so does your entire dependent family.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Wow, and that's through state fund?
It's through grant funding.
Through grant funding, okay. That's really amazing.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. So we've covered the scholarship, Teach Early Childhood Missouri, and then the Show Me resources. That's gosh, you're doing so much in an area where it's needed. I mean,
well, and I think it's paying attention and being in tune. I think the biggest lesson that our team learned in COVID was we needed to be better listeners. We might have a lot of knowledge and expertise and think that we should do this, but if that's not what people want, then it doesn't make sense. And so we step back and we do a lot of listening sessions and surveys and, informal conversations to gain insight, like, what do you need? And that was something that came up all the time is I don't have any benefits. I can't go to the doctor. I always have to go to the emergency room or urgent care. And then I have this crazy copay. And it's like, okay, let's go do something about that. And so we've been successful with that so far.
And I appreciate your comment too, that when you were saying, from your White House visit and just these newer collaborations, which is, I think we all need to do a better job. It is like newer ways of thinking, right? Nothing is wrong with established patterns of methods that work well, that we know, but we know we are changing as a population, as a people constantly. I mean, so to reassess, I think that's great. It sounds like with what you're doing is you're constantly reassessing, listening, and redeveloping.
I think as a nonprofit, you have to. Or else you get complacent real quick. And it's kind of like technology. You've always got to be 3 steps ahead of it and be aware and be good listeners to understand what people need and then get creative and innovative to go find out how to fund it and take care of it. Because that's the cool thing about being in the nonprofit sector. You identify the need and then you just get determined and you go find the money.
Yeah, and then you have to, find the fun.
It sounds so simple. It's not, but when you're determined, you can accomplish a lot.
You can do it. I want to bring up, you do a fundraiser in September, so it's already passed, but we have some photos of it that I wanted to bring up. So this was your 5th annual, and it's called the 2,000 Steps of, well, tell me what it is.
Yeah, it's 2,000 Steps to Make a Difference.
2,000 steps to make a difference to correlate to the first 2,000
Correct.
Days of the conference.
And we do it at Millennium Park behind Barnes Jewish West Hospital in Cave Court. It has a nice paved path, and it's about 2 times around is about a mile. Well, guess how many steps are in a mile? Depending on your stride, about 2,000. And so we just kind of birthed it from that concept. So it's a fundraiser that just kind of slows everything down, brings out families, brings out our vendors, brings out our friends of the organization. And we just, it's a way to raise unrestricted money, which nonprofits need to do other things. So. Yeah, it's a great event. So, you know, it's all of our staff help pull off this event, and there's a silent auction involved. It's, you know, nobody has to get dressed up.
Yeah, right.
Because it's in the morning. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a dress or a suit. You just come as you are. And just learn a little bit more.
I think those events are good just to kind of like, it's not necessarily a breather because events take a huge amount of planning and work, but to also just get outside of the office, get the face-to-face time and just
connecting with the community.
And then, I mean, before we wrap things up for you, I mean, kind of how is this, it's a lot. I mean, working with, in a most beautiful way, as you've alluded to, I mean, being around children is amazing. Knowing that you're contributing to the future by sort of enriching them, it's really quite amazing, right? But the people who are doing it, as you said, are sometimes underappreciated or underpaid, and so there's a lot. And here you are in this space, running this nonprofit as the CEO. I mean, how is this for you? You know, what's kind of ahead for you that you would like to see before you hit those days of retirement?
I know. I keep saying I have about 15 years left, and doggone it, I'm gonna make some impactful change. And I know my team and I make impactful change. I do this work because it's what I'm supposed to do. And that's what keeps me getting up every single day and navigating the bureaucracy and the politics of the funding and, you know, lots of other things we navigate. But I think it's about making sure children from all zip codes have the same opportunities, making sure that funding that gets distributed is equitable and accessible to improve these environments. And again, if we're not building into our childcare workforce, we aren't going to have enough childcare for people to go back to work. And we're going to continue to see a loss in lots of things, you know, economy, money, yes, but just loss in, you know, people even staying in places if there's not childcare available. I think, you know, I'm not ready. I love change, I really do. But like right now, like there's been so much that I'd really like to just get to like a floating you know, phase for now. But I also know with the new governor, who's very supportive of childcare, that we have a lot of work to do ahead of us. And we do that with partners, we do that on our own. We have an amazing board, and now's not the time to wave the white flag.
You're just gonna have to reset and recharge and get at it. It's been really a pleasure to have you here, and I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you,
and for your team, and I'm so glad that you came here to share it with us and to share it with those of you at home who are watching. Before we wrap things up, I'm just going to throw up a graphic for you so you can learn more about Child Care Aware of Missouri. If anyone in your family or in your line of work or anybody that you know, please who would be affected by this, please head to their website. It's a great resource. Really, there's a lot there. It's mochildcareaware.org. And then again, we've got the social handles there if you prefer to follow on social media. Do reach out and follow. A lot of really interesting information. And Robin, again, thank you so much.
Thank you. We're very appreciative. Yes, thank you.
All right. And thank you at home for watching, and keep it right here on STL TV Experience St. Louis.